Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn Espinoza, and me and my partner Jasmine Blancas are going to be doing your presentation on horse slaughter and why commercially it should be practiced in America today. Alright, so horse slaughter. A lot of people, when they think of horse slaughter, it evokes a very strong emotional response. They don't understand. They think of these beautiful horses being taken from the wild and sent to slaughterhouses and these sketchy facilities to be illegally killed. They think it's almost like a black market thing. When the truth of the matter is that there's about 200,000 unwanted horses in America. In just 1 year, there's all these 200,000 horses, and these are 1,000-pound animals. They're very large animals that have nowhere to go and no one to take care of them. Thankfully, there are rescue facilities and organizations that their cause is to help these animals, these horses that have been either neglected, abused, or very most likely abandoned or just surrendered, because despite how many of us think that horses are just like these beautiful pets and that people will get a horse and take care of them for the rest of their lives and love them for the rest of their lives, but there are horses like race horses or horses that serve a purpose, and that when they get too old or when they reach a certain age, they can no longer fulfill that duty to the owner's desire, that their owners don't want them anymore, that even though there are pets, a lot of people still see them as either work animals or that they have to serve a utilitarian purpose. So there are many horses out there that are either given up on or given up because they can't do what their owners need them to do. So these facilities can take them in, and they're a lovely thing. The truth of the matter is that I think about all the facilities in America that rescue horses can only house and fund about 6,000 to maybe 10,000 horses at one time. And although that's amazing and that's so many lives that are being helped, it really just scratches the iceberg. It's like there's still another at least 180,000 of these horses on their own, with nowhere to go, no one to take care of them. And it's just, it creates a problem, because what are we supposed to do with them? And so with slaughterhouses or rendering plants, it creates this federally regulated horse euthanasia program. And it allows owners who can't take care of their horses, who give them up, it allows them to make at least a small portion back from what they've invested. And it just gives all these horses with no shelters and no owners that can take them in, it gives them a place, and it gives them just an end to their lives. And although it's sad, they need to be euthanized. It's just something that needs to be done, because there's just so many horses that until we as society can figure out a plan, or the government can add provisions that will fund all these horses that have nowhere to go, it is a viable solution to the horse overpopulation problem. All right, and for euthanasia of a horse, there are three main forms of euthanasia that are considered humane by the Humane Slaughter Association. And that's captive bolt gun, an overdose of anesthesia, that's considered chemical euthanasia, and a gunshot, of course, to the head. And what main people have a problem with is that they think that that people aren't able to quickly euthanize a horse through the captive bolt gun or the gunshot. But the truth is that through, by the hands of someone who knows what they're doing, they'll know that you can't euthanize a horse like you can euthanize a cow. You can still euthanize it with the captive bolt gun. It just needs to be different. It's the bolt gun needs to be placed a little higher than what's normal for cattle, and the gun needs to be angled in a particular way so that the bolt can go through the cerebral cortex and the brainstem and quickly end the horse's life in as painlessly as possible. And although people think that the only way there's many people who against horse slaughter, they think the only possible way to euthanize a horse is through chemical euthanasia. like many dogs and cats are euthanized. But the truth is that these are 1,000-pound animals. And in order just euthanizing one horse can cost up to $350 and then disposing the body can cost another $350 to $500 per horse. And a lot of people want to cremate their horse, and again with cats and dogs, but the truth is they're not cats and dogs. They're ginormous animals, and cremating them can give you 10 boxes worth of ashes, and just this it's very unpractical. So although they are our pets and we want to treat them exactly like our pets, it's just not functional and not practical, and with chemical euthanasia can lead to extreme environmental problems, as you have this contaminated carcass that if you don't decide to take in the 10 boxes of ashes, although I'm sure some do, they might just stack them against their wall or something. You have this chemically contaminated carcass that if you leave either outside or you try to bury and other animals try to consume, it then can poison the ecosystem around it or the environment. And with that, it's often, and then gunshots can be, I feel, are a little dangerous to the people around. If you were to, I believe it was said that if you tried to euthanize a horse in a trailer or something, or the bullet bounces and then it could hit someone around the horse. So I believe that the captive bolt gun is really the best solution, if done properly, to euthanize a horse. All right, so problems with alternative horse carcass disposal. There are 6 main carcass disposal methods that can include burial, rendering, landfill, composting, incineration, and biodigestion. Pretty much all of them have their own drawbacks, from either cost-wise, availability-wise, and they can have environmental consequences as well, going back to the chemical euthanasia and how the horse can poison the environment around it. But as for burial-wise, there are some local land ordinances that can legally stop someone from burying their horses due to the fear of ground and water contamination, since again it's a very large animal, and the bacterias and the decomposing can affect what's around it, and as well as not only that, it can cost from $300 to $500 to bury a horse, and for a lot of people that isn't an option. It's just far too expensive. As far as rendering goes, again, due to the legality of horse products recently, the availability wise of facilities being able to render a horse has gone down, and there's also concerns of disease and residue, again, from chemically euthanized horse carcasses, that a lot of rendering plants either won't accept it, or the workers, they have a problem with it. And even that, if you can get your horse rendered, it can cost up to $75 to $250, and which is much cheaper than most. Another way is by landfill, and of course there are problems with landfills, since there's a lot of landfill workers out there who don't want to accept horse carcasses, or again, there could be local laws against it. And the next would be composting, which, I don't know, I think that's a little weird and gross, but some people might want to compost their pet horse. And of course, that again brings mainly environmental issues. There's potential water contamination risk. There's also an odor nuisance. That's not going to smell too great. And there's a worry of inadequate disease control. It seems very unregulated and very unsafe for some people. Incineration, that of course, mainly just air pollution. Incineration would be nice if a horse wasn't so big. It could fuel costs can reach up to $600 to sometimes even $2,000. So it's just not very practical again. And biodigestion is just very limited ability and also a little expensive. So just the horse carcass disposal methods, as far as it goes, I just feel like none of them really reach the practicality that horse slaughter could bring. That horse slaughter could really just provide a more useful solution to a horse carcass, to disposing horse carcasses, or rendering. I think rendering would be nice, but again, there's some rendering plants that won't take in horses, especially in America, due to the ban on horse slaughter and horse meat products being sold here. And that sort of segues into the next slide, which is about horse slaughter in the United States. So between 1992 and 2007, approximately 1% to 2% of the domestic equine population in the United States was sent to slaughter each year. And as of 2007, the practice of horse slaughter became illegal on American soil. And there's many people out there that are like, great, horses shouldn't be slaughtered. They think of horses as a symbol of America, and they're very important to many people in America. But the truth is that before 2007, there was about 37,000 horses that were exported over the borders of Mexico and Canada for slaughter. And as of 2012, that number's racked up enormously to about 176,000 sent across the border for slaughter. Because again, even though we made it illegal here, there's still every year at least 200,000 horses that have nowhere to go. So many people say, well, if they can't be killed here, or if they can't go to a local slaughterhouse, then horses have to suffer the long, sometimes I think it was around, before 2007, maybe at most horses traveled like 550 miles to the slaughterhouses. Now it's racked up to at least like 753 miles to go to a slaughterhouse. And that just means worse conditions, less food, because now all the animals that we can't take care of, we have to send to either Canada or Mexico to take care of them for us. And it just creates a larger problem. So despite being illegal in America, the same number of horses are still being slaughtered each year, except now they can't be slaughtered in Texas, and America's not making the profit off of it. Two other countries are, mainly Canada and Mexico. So it benefits people's peace of mind almost, but in reality, it's just harder on the horses themselves. All right, the next thing I want to talk about were federal lands, which are the lands that the government owns for horses. And I wanted to just clear up the confusion on this, because these lands are for wild mustangs. These are horses that have never been anyone's pet, never were, and hopefully never will be for most of them. They're not horse sanctuaries, is what I'm trying to get across. That these 200,000 horses, they can't go onto these lands, because these lands are already. Who looks over them is the BLM. That's the organization that looks over about the 26.9 million acres of public lands, and I think there was like a maximum number of 67,000 wild mustangs and donkeys almost. So there's already a limited number, and the BLM actually works all throughout the year of extracting these wild horses from these lands, because I think it was every 4 years, if unchecked, the horse populations would double. So the BLM is constantly taking horses off of this land, these wild horses, these mustangs, and putting them up for adoption or rounding them up. And they spend around $49 million for the care of these wild horses. So it's already, these federal lands aren't an option for most of these domesticated horses, at least, when the BLM is already having their hands full trying to contain what's already there and what's rapidly expanding and trying to keep it at a manageable rate. All right, and next I wanted to talk about actual horse sanctuaries and the financial strain they find themselves under in trying to take care of all these horses that need a place to go. And again, I think horse sanctuaries are wonderful, and although this is a PowerPoint for horse slaughter, I think that we can create a place where both can exist. I don't think that all horses should have to die. I think that there should be horse sanctuaries out there to give at least as many horses as possible a second chance to be put out there again and given being able to live their full life. But that again doesn't retract to the fact that they can't do it all, because horses are extremely expensive. I'm sure nobody's surprised. I think it was $2,340 a year to take care of just one horse. And these sanctuaries take in probably at least not hundreds, but probably at least in a couple hundred range. And it was an estimated $25,000 to take care of one of these unwanted horses for the rest of their lives. And that's $25,000 even without unexpected vet bills or sicknesses or injuries that might occur. And again, horse sanctuaries are really only able to take care of about 6,000 to 10,000 horses. And because of this, because there's still such a high demand, such a high need for these rescues for all these unwanted horses, it can sometimes force these rescues at times to take in more horses than beyond their means. And this can lead to greater problems. It can cause some facilities to actually there's been some facilities that have had their animals seized because they were unable to take proper care of them due to financial strain. And this could be probably from a lack of donations, too many horses, they bit off more than they can chew, which is a scary thing because, again, most horse abuse stems from insufficient economic resources. And although horse rescues are a wonderful thing, they're also not immune to this. There have been some horse rescues that have been busted and have their animals taken because they just weren't able to fill that demand, and they shouldn't have to. They should be able to do their best, and I think horse slaughter would be a way to sort of not completely remove the burden, but at least be the other hand to this problem, and meaning that it could be another place for these horses, another option at least. It's always better to have that option. And understanding that these sanctuaries depend on donations, that they're fighting each other, competing each other for donations, and that although it's the best option, it's not always the available option. While slaughterhouses are they're always gonna be there, that option. And although euthanasia is sad, it's a common thing for domestic animals that have nowhere to go. All right, and my last slide is going to be on the economic impacts of the slaughter ban. And it was actually a very bad economic impact. It was a very negative effect, as it caused practically a collapse in the domestic horse market. And this was caused due to the fact that by eliminating the slaughterhouses, it removed the price floor for the minimum acceptable price for a horse. And this is due to slaughterhouses being very non-discriminative, or having little bias of a horse with breeders or show horses, or in the racehorse fields, that the price of a horse is affected by its attributes about how fast it runs, how it looks, how big it is, and stuff like that. There's many factors that affect a horse's price in those categories of the market. While the slaughterhouse, it's very non-biased in that way, and where it's less about how the coloring of the horse, or the face shape, or how long its back is, more due to the practical size, weight, and sometimes not even that. It's just the absolute minimum price a horse is worth for just being a horse itself. And it's shown that the removal of that has caused prices of all horses in all the categories of the horse market to drop. I found a study that's shown that at least 8 to 20% price decrease in all price categories of the horse market. And this is not a very good thing, and this is because the horse meat industry was a very large part, not a large part, but it at least was a large dollar worth that's gone. The horse meat industry was valued at $65 million, and all that money, all the jobs that it was making in America was just gone around 2007. And it's shown that there was a very negative effect. And although it's not entirely negative, I'm sure the horse market is still going. It's still a thing. It's just showing that the economy and the horse market could flourish if there was the slaughterhouses to be basically a strong foundation that it was built off of. And that's going to be it for me. And I'm going to pass it on to my partner, Jasmine, and she's going to finish out this presentation for you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Blancas, and I'm going to go over a few reasons why horse slaughter should be allowed in the U.S. One way horse slaughter can be beneficial is that it would help combat the overpopulation of wild horses. The overpopulation of wild horses means that there are more horses than the land can sustain. The Bureau of Land Management typically rounds up horses since there are limited predators and no hunting licenses that would aid in the population control of wild horses. However, the Bureau of Land Management has not been able to round up as many horses because the bulk of their budget is going towards housing unwanted horses. Since there are too many horses, overgrazing has begun to happen, and it has become apparent in looking at the land. Overgrazing is when the land is grazed on consistently without sufficient time to recover. Overgrazing causes native plants to be unable to survive. When these native plants are unable to survive, undesirable plants begin to grow. One undesirable plant that is very visible among this land is cheatgrass. Cheatgrass is a grass that is unpalatable for a majority of the year, and it also changes the fire regime, making the land more susceptible to fires. The wild horse population is exploding. This occurrence is creating many problems for not only the land, but the horses themselves as well. The large population of wild horses is leading to the depletion of their resources for both food and water. Wild horses are often found severely underweight and starving. There are also instances when wild horses have to be provided water because there is not enough water that is naturally occurring. Also, sometimes wild horses get stuck in the mud while scouring for water, and an emergency team has to be sent out to rescue it. The overpopulation of wild horses is causing them to push their boundaries, thus occupying more and more land. As these horses occupy more land, there have been instances where they approach highways. Some of these instances where wild horses approach highways have led to unsafe conditions when the horses cause automobile accidents. If horse slaughter was legal in the United States again, horses could be used for consumption as a meal source. One issue that is raised when it comes to the consumption of horses is whether or not it is safe to do so. It is believed that it may not be safe because of the use of antibiotics on horses. While these concerns may be valid, Canada has successfully developed a screening process to ensure that the horses that are to be slaughtered are meeting the safety standards. The screening process involves 7 steps. 1. Health certificates for the horses are endorsed by a USDA accredited veterinarian within 30 days prior to export. 2. Horses are clinically healthy, fit for travel, and transported humanely to the points of entry. 3. Owner certificates are properly completed, including date, time, and location the horses were loaded. 4. Horses are listed correctly on the owner certificate so that, for example, the back tags on the horse matches the back tags listed on the certificate. 5. An ante-mortem inspection of each horse is performed. 6. Date and time the shipment arrived at the facility is noted on the certificate. 7. Copies of all relevant documents are returned to APHIS every month. My final opinion is that horse slaughter is necessary. Horse slaughter makes sense economically. Horse slaughter would help create jobs, horse meat can be sold for consumption, and the Bureau of Land Management would spend less money caring for unwanted animals. Horse slaughter also makes sense environmentally. It would help to control the population. The resources for the wild horses would not be drained, and this would prevent horses from being dehydrated or starved. Also, environmentally, it would be beneficial because the rangeland and the vegetation would have more time to recover, and the desirable species would be able to prevail.
All right, thank you so much for listening to our presentation. I hope we were able to expand your thoughts on this topic, and I hope we were able to at least de-villainize the topic of horse slaughter for you and showing you guys that it's not a cruel, unusual punishment to horses. Sometimes it's just a necessary evil for these horses that have nowhere to go, and that slaughterhouses could be a solution to help all of these horses out here in America today. Thank you so much. Have a great day.